Welcome out here tonight. I do consulting, one-on-one training with people. I've been doing that for about 15 years. Through that, I was working at a music store and did work for a variety of artists locally in Arizona. I'm a recent transplant to Hawaii. My wife's family's lived here for 40 years, and so she wanted to move back home, and so I'm living here and really excited to be here. And I taught at a recording school for the last 10 years, teaching MIDI and digital audio. I'm a big Logic freak. It's one of my favorite programs. I also teach Pro Tools. Taught everything in their curriculum from MIDI to surround sound to video game audio to what have you. If you saw the blurb and stuff, I was in a big heavy rock band for several years and recorded a couple albums, worked with some big producers, and then from that I ended up getting into doing music for soundtrack stuff and videos and stuff, and that's been a lot of fun. And along the way, worked at studios, worked in Sacramento for a while, worked with Tyrese on his first album, so got some credits for that stuff. So what I wanted to go over in a couple of these classes is just talk about some fundamentals. When I do one-on-one consultation with people, usually the biggest problem we have is a language barrier. People just don't understand the terms and don't know what all this stuff is, and you read manuals and it's like way too confusing just to like get into it. And so what I want to do with this first one, because this is probably one of the most misunderstood concepts is MIDI, is talk about what it is, talk about what you can do with it, sort of some different reasons for understanding it, and then fundamentally get into like basic messages and some basic hookup stuff. I don't have, what I'm used to is like a 4-hour class, so I got like an hour, and I'm figuring maybe I'll go a little bit past that, but hopefully you guys have some questions and or develop some questions along the way. If you want to raise your hand anytime during this, feel free. So at the end of this, I have cards. I'll hand them out, and so you guys can kind of, if you're interested in consulting or whatever, or learning more. And I'll probably be doing many more things here. I'm very excited to be doing this stuff out here. So how many of you guys are actually using MIDI right now? Okay, quite a few of you. Okay, great. So I was talking to you a minute ago, and you said you have a MacBook Pro and you have Logic and Reason. Anybody else care to describe some of their home studio setups, what you got? Sir, what do you got?
I'm using Adobe Audition.
Okay, Adobe Audition, great.
Audio part, and I'm kind of a band-in-the-box junkie.
Oh, wow, okay. So you like the styles and putting in chord changes and band in the box, great.
I teach guitar with McKinley High School.
Oh, awesome, great. Cool, okay, good. Sir?
I just use
GarageBand, okay.
A little bit of Reason.
Okay, good. GarageBand and Reason. Anybody else care to talk about what they got? Go ahead.
I use Linux,
Linux, okay.
Timidity, and I'm interested in converting musical notation called ABC into MIDI.
Okay.
And then being able to
Manipulate it and stuff?
render those as sound.
Well, if you got some deep questions, let me know. I'm trying to see how deep I want to go with some of this stuff. I thought about talking about like what MIDI looks like digitally, which can be like, okay, bits and people start freaking out. So I'm trying to decide how far to go with it. But if you have questions on this stuff, let me know. So what's your setup?
I only use MIDI, like for my keyboard and Finale.
Okay, Finale, doing notation, great.
If you have a device like which you would recommend.
For a controller?
Yeah.
Okay.
Finale is just really.
Okay, sure. We can talk about some of that stuff too. Great. All right, anybody else have systems they want to talk about, what they have? Okay, well, let me just dive into it. I want to talk a little bit about, again, basically, what is MIDI? Picture my controller here. I have a Axiom 49 key, and along with this other little controller here, I used to have more stuff, and when I moved out, I had to pare down the studio. And I took like very, very few things. I'm actually going to buy a guitar amp tonight because I've been dying to have an amp again. So one caveat, I'm a guitarist. Yeah, so if you're worried about that I'm going to try to train you to be like a Depeche Mode keyboardist or something like that, that's not at all what I'm going to teach you today. I'm going to teach you about what's going on with this stuff and understand how to hook it up and so forth. And I use MIDI to basically create, to finish my ideas, to form all the other members of the band and stuff like that. And I think it's a really powerful tool for that. So anybody know what it stands for? You know what the letters stand for? Go ahead.
MIDI interface. No, it's actually musical instrument digital interface.
That's right. Okay, great. Do you think you could define it? Okay, it is digital. Obviously, that's in the name. Here's probably the biggest issue I've had with describing MIDI and explaining this idea to other people is fundamentally, yeah, it's okay. It's this digital interface. It's probably some kind of language and so forth, and it's going to involve bits because it's digital and obviously musical instruments. But the first thing that people make an assumption about MIDI is that it's sound, that you can hear MIDI. No. MIDI is not audio, and that's like the biggest thing. You got to like pound that in your head. If I were to plug this keyboard through a MIDI connection into a guitar amplifier right now and I were to play, nothing. All right, you wouldn't get it. You wouldn't get any kind of sound, and it's really confusing for people. Like, oh well, I plugged the MIDI into my computer and that's sending audio from the key. No, there's no sound whatsoever. In fact, to be honest, MIDI developed in 1983 is actually a little too slow as a digital protocol to send raw audio. What it's much more akin to is it's sending actual instructions and information. When I taught at this school, our big thing was it's a protocol, which is basically an organized set of rules in order for a system to work. Like our traffic system is a protocol, right? Red means stop, and so forth and so on. And within a protocol, if everything's following those rules, it all works. And so one of the ideas that I like to get across is that it's a form of remote control. Another idea that I used to always throw out there is this idea that MIDI is a lot like sheet music. If you were to have a sheet of music right here, right now, what does it sound like? It depends on what? It depends on the interpreter. Does that make sense? Who's the interpreter? We call them a musician, right? They're the people that own an instrument. They have some kind of training. They can read this protocol, these set of instructions. Will results vary? Wildly. Would you agree? Right? One of the biggest things that I've had a problem with teaching and explaining this, and when I worked at a music store, is people would come in and they go, "Oh, MIDI, it sounds bad. It's awful." And I go, "Oh, well, wait a minute. It's not even audio. How can you say it sounds bad?" It's like saying to me, "Oh, musical notation, man, it sounds bad. It's awful. This stuff? Are you basing that on like a 3-year-old playing this stuff, or are you basing it on Yo-Yo Ma? What are you basing this on? Because it's just instructions, right?" On the mainland, the big store there is IKEA. Anybody familiar with IKEA? They come with instructions. Results may vary, right? So if you're familiar with what I mean. So anyway, so if you think of it as a remote control, it's sending information, it's sending instructions, and very similar to that, MIDI, the results may vary. You're not going to always get what people think of what it might do. So what I want to just briefly talk about is like, okay, what are some applications of MIDI besides just playing keyboards? And I'm a geek. Obviously, I'm up here with all this keyboards and stuff. That's pretty obvious. But I'm also into video games, which is really cool, as my wife is too. It was awesome. Like our first time that we started dating, she had a PlayStation, a Nintendo 64, and a Dreamcast. And I was like, what? I'll be player 2. Right, and so anyway, so we hit it off really well. And so one of the things I got into with games recently is Rock Band. Anyone fool around with that? It's pretty fun. It's goofy, but I'm a closet drummer, and so I've always wanted to play. Well, basically that system is a MIDI system that's inside of it. In fact, I do this podcast, if you guys check out my website later, where I show how to take the drum kit and from the video game and actually make it control GarageBand. So you can actually act as a controller. And the idea here is this is just a remote control. It's allowing a drummer an interface to get into MIDI and play stuff with it. Obviously, notation's a big use for MIDI. You're talking about you're using it for finale and so forth. Another really popular use is for effects processors and being able to control them and go in and change. And a DJ could be performing something, and while that's happening, be able to record those movements and automate them and have them repeated. I'm a guitarist, as I said earlier, and it's not uncommon to see guitar effects processors like this really popular one from Line 6, the Pod, have MIDI connections on the back of it. And people go, well, what is that for? Is that for plugging a keyboard into it? No, not at all. What would a guitarist with a box like this want? Control. Does that make sense? Would you want to step on this product? No, it's really not set up for that. It's a tabletop product. If you're like, trying to get your, shoes off and trying to, step on buttons, it's not going to work, turning knobs with your feet, right?